He remembered the day when he heard gunshots in Sarajevo. Back in June 1914, the news about the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand seemed distant, almost abstract. But a month later, Europe, like dry brushwood, burst into flames. The world split into two camps, the Entente and the Central Powers. And he, a simple teacher from Lille, Jean Marceau, ended up in the trenches near Verdun. The war, which was described as fast and glorious, turned into hell. The earth shook from artillery, the air howled from shells, and the trenches smelled of rot and fear. For the first time, Jean saw an iron monster tank crawling through smoke, crushing barbed wire. Airplanes roared overhead, dropping bombs, and gas attacks left bluish shadows on the faces of those who did not have time to put on a mask. The Eastern Front devoured the armies like an insatiable beast. The Russians attacked under machine gun fire, and the Germans responded with counterattacks. But neither side could break the other. Dirt, lice, typhus. Sometimes it seemed that the earth itself wanted to swallow up the living. 1917 brought new changes. Americans sailed from overseas, fresh, confident, and with inexhaustible supplies. Their marches sounded like a hymn of hope for the exhausted soldiers of the Entente. Jean, who had not seen his home for 3 years, clung to this hope as to the last thread. On November 11, 1918, the silence was louder than the cannonade. The armistice of Compiègne. The war was over, but the victory did not bring rejoicing. Ghosts came out of the trenches, exhausted, with empty eyes. Jean returned to Lille, but the city was in ruins, as was his soul. Empires crumbled: Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire. The world map was being redrawn at the Versailles negotiations, but the new borders were bleeding with resentment. The seed of revenge was ripe in Germany. Jean saw veterans who were out of work crowding the streets, and newspapers shouted about betrayal and stabbing in the back. He often thought about the son he had left behind in 1914. The boy grew up but did not recognize his father. The war had stolen not only years from both of them, but also a language in which to talk about peace. 17 million lives, 17 million stories turned to ashes. And somewhere in those ashes, a new spark was smoldering. Jean felt it as he looked at the horizon, where clouds were swirling. The Second World War has not yet begun, but its shadow has already fallen on Europe. Meanwhile, he was planting an apple tree in a ruined orchard. Maybe the tree will survive the coming storms. Maybe not. But it was his humble rebellion against the madness that people called war.